So OpenAI just launched a new AI agents tool for web browsing, file management, and computer use. We'll show you exactly how it's different, the new tools that they've included to make custom AI agents easy for you to make. Let's check it out. So as you can see on March 11, they posted this new tools for building agents. And I'm going to break it down and make it very simple here. You can see that they've added a lot of things and a lot of new tools that you can start using in your agent frameworks. Now, I'm not going to go deep into exactly what it is on this page here because we're going to watch a video in just a minute. One of the improvements that they've added to it is that it's a lot better at doing web search. This is something that it would hallucinate a lot in the past, but seeing that this is one of its core capable things that it can do is obviously very important for any AI agent. But there's a lot more, including file management and computer use, that I would love to show you right now. So they also released this video here that says we're launching new tools to help developers build reliable and powerful AI agents. So let's take a quick watch through this video.
Hey everyone, I'm Kevin and I lead product at OpenAI. Today we're here to talk developers and agents. And in particular, we're excited to launch a bunch of new tools that make it easy for developers to build reliable and useful agents. Now, when we say agent, we mean a system that can act independently to do tasks on your behalf. And we've launched 2 agents this year in ChatGPT. The first is Operator, which can browse the web and do things for you on the web. The second is Deep Research, which can create detailed reports for you on any topic you want. So you give it a topic and it can go off and do what might be a week's worth of research for you and come back with an answer in 15 minutes. The feedback for those has been fantastic, but we want to now launch those tools and more in the API to developers. So we've spent the last couple months going around talking to developers all over the world about how we can make it easy for them to build agents. And what we've heard is that the models are ready. So with advanced reasoning, with multimodal understanding, our models can now do the kind of complex multi-step workflows that agents need. But on the other hand, developers feel like they're having to cobble together different low-level APIs from different sources. It's difficult, it's slow, it often feels brittle. So today we're really excited to bring that together into a series of tools and a new API and an open source SDK to make this a lot easier. So with that, let me introduce the team.
Yeah. So there you can already see that they're working on not necessarily making things a lot better, but removing the fluff and making everything that they already have in-house available to developers, making it easy to do these tasks. And they have done a lot of really cool upgrades here. So let's listen a little bit more.
Hi, I'm Ilan. I'm an engineer on the developer experience team.
I'm Steve. I'm an engineer on the API team.
And I'm Nikunj. I work on the API product team. So let's dive into all the stuff that we are launching today. Like Kevin mentioned, we have 3 new built-in tools. We have a new API and an open source SDK. Starting off with the built-in tools, the first tool that we're announcing today is called the Web Search tool. The Web Search tool allows our models to access information from the internet so that your responses and the output that you get is up-to-date and factual. The Web Search tool is the same tool that powers ChatGPT Search, and it's powered by a fine-tuned model under the hood. So this is the fine-tuned GPT-4o or 4o mini that is really good at looking at large amounts of data retrieved from the web, finding the relevant pieces of information, and then clearly citing it in its response.
One thing that is very interesting to see here is that they're using 4o and 4o mini. And we've actually tested this inside as well, where we tried to use reasoning models like the O3, and the hallucination rates on those links that we find is very high. And there has actually been benchmarks on hallucination where they found that O3 was insanely good at hallucinating links that it found on the web. So yeah, it seems like this is the best way to go forward with exactly this. Yeah, and we already saw the results as well from the previous, which I think, yeah, 4o is definitely the way to go with this web search. And that they have it built into the API is the first time OpenAI actually enables us to use search through the API. before we had to use Perplexity to actually do search, which is a huge upgrade here if you need to search anything on the web.
In a benchmark that measures these type of things, which is called Simple QA, you can see that GPT-4o hits a high score of state-of-the-art score of 90%. So that's the first tool. Steve, do you want to tell us about the second one?
Yeah, the second tool is actually my favorite tool, and this is the file search tool. Now, we launched the file search tool last year in the Assistance API as a way for developers to upload, chunk, embed their documents, and then RAG really easily over those documents. Now, we're really excited to be launching two new features in the file search tool today. The first is metadata filtering. So with metadata filtering, you can add attributes to your files to be able to easily filter them down to just the ones that are the most relevant for your query. The second is a direct search endpoint. So now you can directly search your vector stores without your queries being filtered through the model first.
So the key thing that he said here was that it's easy to integrate RAG. Now, this is a vector database that stores all your data, so it's easily retrievable in the future, compared to if you just upload a bunch of text documents, like a bunch of Word files. It's actually quite hard for the AI to find the exact specific information if you're not using RAG. So it's cool to see that they're actually investing deeper into RAG and seeing that that is the best way to actually retrieve information, store information, because that is what we found as well to be the best way of storing data and retrieving data. So it's cool to see that they're making it easy.
So you have web search for the public data, file search for the private data that you have. And then the third tool that we are launching is the computer use tool. The computer use tool is operator in the API, but it allows you to control the computers that you are operating. So this could be a virtual machine. It could be a legacy application that just has a graphical user interface and you have no API access to it. If you want to automate those kind of tasks and build applications on that, you can use the computer use tool, which comes with the computer use model. So this is the same model that is used by Operator in ChatGPT. It has SOTA benchmarks on OS World, Web Arena, Web Voyager.
Again, having access to this through the API allows us to basically code computer use into our programs, which is something that you couldn't do before. And now seeing that you have web search, you have file search, and you have computer use all at the same time allows us to do things that we can never do before, especially kind of thinking about the framework of, instead of handing this over to a human, can I actually just code a computer use case around this instead? And then actually doing that. So yeah, a lot of new things can be built on this, especially seeing that it's doing really well. But there is some comparison with Manus AI and browser use as well. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how good it is at doing what it claims. So let's actually see some examples after we learn a little bit more about it.
Early user feedback on the Kua model and the tool has been super, super positive. So I'm really excited to see what all of you build with it. All right, so those are the three tools. And while we were building these tools and thinking of getting them out, we also wanted to take a first principles approach at designing the best API for these tools. We released chat completions, I think, in March 2023 alongside GPT 3.5 Turbo. And every single API interaction at that time was just text in and text out. Since then, we've introduced multimodality. So you have images, you have audio. We are introducing tools today. And you also have products like O1 Pro, Deep Research, Operator that make these multiple model turns and multiple tool calls behind the scenes. So we wanted to build an API primitive that is flexible enough. It supports multiple turns. It supports tools. And we're calling this new API the Responses API. And to show you the Responses API, I'm going to hand it over to Steve.
Cool. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Responses API. So if you've used chat completions before, this will look really familiar to you. You select some.
So here he goes through an example of how to actually access this inside of your code. And as a non-coder myself, I don't code unless I need to, and I have coded quite a bit with ChatGPT. It seems like this language is extremely easy to use, as you will just call upon one of their tools, and then you actually get, for example, here you see type, file search. So now it's using the new tool there to be able to do that. You also see here web search preview, and that is another tool that you can start using. And then you can see this shopping assistant that uses this vector store idea with RAG. And you can see that it's actually able to produce very good outputs with not that many lines of code, leading to a lot more simplicity on the coding part. So it seems like they've done it in a really, really smart way here to make it easily integratable. But besides web search and file search, what most people are probably interested in is the Agents SDK. Hey, by the way, if you like this video, click on subscribe. Also check out the full video over on our podcast channel. You can find that in the link in the description. Now, let's get back to it. But besides web search and file search, what most people are probably interested in is the Agents SDK. So let's take a quick look at this.
For those of you who have built more complex applications, like say you're building a customer support agent, it's not always about just having one agent that's sort of the personal stylist. You also have some agentic application that's doing your refunds. You have another thing that's answering customer support, FAQ queries. You have something else that's dealing with orders and billing, etc. And to make these applications easy to build, we released an SDK last year called Swarm. And Swarm made it easy to do agent orchestration. This was supposed to be an experimental and educational thing, but so many of you took it to production anyway. So you're like forcing our hand over here. and so we've decided to take Swarm and make it production ready, add a bunch of new features, and we're going to be rebranding it to be called the Agents SDK. Ilan built Swarm and helped build it, so I'm going to hand it over to him to tell you more about how it works.
Yeah, thanks, Nikunj. Yeah, so in my time at OpenAI, I've spent a lot of time working with enterprises and builders to help them build out agentic experiences. And I've seen firsthand how pretty simple ideas can actually grow in complexity, like when you actually go to implement them. And so the idea with the Agents SDK is to keep simple ideas simple to implement while allowing you to build more complex and robust ideas still in a pretty straightforward and simple way. So let's take a look at what Steve had before in the demo, but implemented using the Agents SDK. It's going to look very similar at first. We have our agent defined here. We have some instructions. And we also have both of the tools, file search tool, web search tool, that we had before.
Is this using responses under the hood?
Yeah, so by default, this is using the responses API, but we actually support multiple vendors. Anything that really fits the chat completions shape can work with the Agents SDK.
Nice.
So during the practice runs, we actually accidentally ordered many Patagonias. So I'm sorry, we're gonna have to.
I don't understand. What's the problem?
We're helping you here. We want to return some of them, and so to do that, I could usually just add in a returns tool and add more to this prompt and get it to work. But the problem with that is you start to mix all of this business logic, which makes your agents a little bit harder to test. And so this is the power of multiple agents, is you can actually separate your concerns and develop and test them separately. So to do so, let's actually introduce an agent specifically to deal with this sorts of returns.
So one key thing to note here is that they are using multiple agents for multiple use cases. And this is true still when it comes to actually doing ChatGPT completions as well, where you might use one ChatGPT prompt and one framework to go down this way, and then you might use another one to go down this other way when it comes to actually doing the things that you wanted to do. So this can be a stylist agent, this could be a customer support agent, and creating more and deeper kind of personas or agents is really the next level of this. And that's why you're seeing OpenAI as well heavily invest into this Swarm system, or now the Agent SDK.
Want to load mine in, and great. So we still have our agent from before, but you can see there's also this new agent, the customer support agent here. And I've defined a couple tools for it to use. The get past orders, and then submit refund. And you might notice these are just regular Python functions, as this is actually a feature that people really loved in Swarm that we brought over to the Agents SDK, which is we'll take your Python functions and look at the type inference or look at the type signatures and then automatically generate the JSON schema that the models need to use to perform those function calls. And then once they do, we actually run the code and then return the results. So you can just define these functions as they are. Now, I've given them, now we have our two agents, right? We have the stylist agent and we have the customer support refunds agent. So how do we interact with both of them as a user? This is where the notion of handoffs come in. And a handoff is actually a pretty simple idea that's pretty powerful. And it's when you have one conversation where one agent is handling it, and then it hands it off to another, where you keep the entire conversation the same, but behind the scenes, you just swap out the instructions and the tools. And this gives you a way to triage conversations and like load in the correct context for each part of the conversation. So what we've done here is created this triage agent that can hand off to the stylist agent or the customer support agent. So enough talking, let's actually see this in action.
It's kind of funny that they actually have like a manager in the middle. There's like a guy that is handing one task over to the other person. They even had to make an agent for that. Pretty interesting.
And I think we may have ordered one too many Patagonias. Can you help me return?
I don't understand.
I know. I'm so sorry. I can get you one later. So what just happened here is it started off by transferring, remember, we're starting with the triage agent, to the customer support agent. And this is just a function call that I'll show you in a second. And then the customer support agent proactively called the get past orders function, where we can see all of Kevin's Patagonias. I think you'll be okay. Cool. So to actually see what happened behind the scenes, usually you might need to add some debugging statements by hand. But one of the things that the Agents SDK brings right out of the box is monitoring and tracing. So I'm going to go over to the tracing UI that we have on our platform to actually take a look what just happened. So these are some of the previous runs that we've had. I'm just refreshing the page. And we can see the last one. And this last one, you can actually see exactly what happened. We started with a triage agent, which we sent the request to, made a handoff, and then switched over to the customer support agent, which called the function. We can see what the original input was. And handoffs are first-class objects in this dashboard. So you can see not only which agent we actually handed it off to, but any that it had as options that it did not, which is actually a really useful feature for debugging. Afterward, once we're in the customer support agent, you can see the get past orders function call with any input params.
So as you can see, this is actually a quite big development from OpenAI, allowing us to build agents a lot more easily. However, what are people actually saying about it on Reddit? Well, here you can see this user has the opinion, OpenAI have a problem with completion API. It's too easy for developers to switch providers, just change the endpoint URL in the code. This response API will help them keep developers trapped into their ecosystem. They have a very good search API, but instead of making it available and let you choose your own LLM, they force you to use it in a bundle with GPT-4o or 4o mini. Same of vectors. You could say that one could use other vectors, but for starting, this makes your life so easy. But if you use this time, it will be way more difficult to switch to another provider. So this seems a little bit like they're trying to do the Apple ecosystem type of a variable, where they're trying to not make it so easily swappable, kind of quote unquote, control the ecosystem. So that definitely makes sense that they want to lock people into their ecosystem and use it in their way.
It's very interesting. Like they talk about during the live recording that we watched. Oh, it's so easy to just switch from one to the other. It's going to be so easy. We're going to issue guides and stuff. But to get out of this, it's going to be super hard. It looks like.
Yeah, it seems like you can't really put Claude 3.7 on top of OpenAI's infrastructure, which kind of makes sense. And I guess it's not called OpenAI anymore. It's called closed AI. So we got that covered, This is obviously very new, but we are seeing big developments happen with other people testing this SDK out. And you can as well by checking it out with the new Agents SDK and the Responses API. Hey, so if you loved this clip, we actually have a full-length podcast that you can check out in the link in the description down below. A lot more to cover. All right, see you there.